sing. Glory to the newborn King. Hark the herald angels sing. Glory to the newborn King. Thanks for singing along. You can have a seat.
I remember when my daughter Sarah, our firstborn, was born some 24 years ago. The moment was so full and so beautiful and so real and so alive to me. The pride that swelled in my heart and my wife Fran's heart when we saw this little girl for the first time. And I remember the first time we made eye contact. It was perfect. You are mine, little girl. You belong to me. You belong to us. I didn't know as much as I know now that God felt exactly the same way when she first made the scene. And his heart, his fatherly heart, must have been filled with joy when his son was born. God feels the same way about all of us. For this is what the Lord says, He who created you, He who formed you, I have summoned you by name, you are mine. For everyone belongs to me, the parent as well as the child, both alike belong to me. The earth is the Lord's, and everything in it, the world and all of you who live in it. To be part of this God-begotten world is to belong. God feels for you what we felt for our newborn daughter that day, only much more. You are His, and He is yours. You and God are attached to one another. And apparently, attachment, according to this book I've been reading this week, is what parenting is all about. A couple of paragraphs from the introduction. It's called Hold On to Your Kids by Neufeld and Matte. Parenting requires a context to be effective. A child must be receptive if we are to succeed in nurturing, comforting, guiding, and directing her. Children do not automatically grant us the authority to parent them just because we're adults, or just because we love them, or think we know what's good for them, or have their best interests at heart. If parenting skills, or even loving the child, are not enough, what then is needed? There is an indispensable special kind of relationship without which parenting lacks a firm foundation. Developmentalists, psychologists, or other scientists who study human development call it an attachment relationship. For a child to be open to being parented by an adult, he must actively be attaching to that adult, be wanting contact and closeness with him. At the beginning of life, this drive to attach is quite physical. The infant literally clings to the parent and needs to be held. And if everything unfolds according to design, the attachment will evolve into an emotional closeness and finally a sense of psychological intimacy. Children who lack this kind of connection with those responsible for them are very difficult to parent or often even to teach. Only the attachment relationship can provide the proper context for child rearing. The secret of parenting is not what a parent does, but rather who a parent is to a child. So I guess the big question coming out of that reading is, how do you as a parent maintain, strengthen, and grow your attachment bond? I'm not a parent. Well, think in terms of other people then that you lead or teach or care for or are in relationship with, because the attachment concept applies very much in that direction as well. So how do you get and keep attachment going? I believe, no surprise, Sunday morning, sitting in church, that having a relationship with God and letting God's perspective on the attachment process inform your ideas and your being is key. God's presence and His role in what attachment is critical to your ability to be a dad, to be a mom soon. First off, God was the one who planned for the two of you to be together. If you've been around New Hope long enough, you know that we believe in a huge view of providence and that God planned for you to be a stepmom, plans for you to be a mom, planned for you to be born into our family. For He chose us in Him, the Apostle Paul writes, before the creation of the world. So before anything existed, God had that bond in mind. God put you with her, with Him, on purpose. And there is something very profound in believing and knowing that God, in God's wisdom of all things, the maker of everything, chose before anything was made, had the idea of you being with Maddie. It just adds a gravity and a weight and a profundity to that. This is no small thing. This was thought of a long, long time ago. God has ordained your parental bond with your kids. And He built all kinds of physiological attachment into it, alluded to in what I just read. For many of us, our children are flesh of our very flesh. The coming together of a man and a woman, and then a baby gestating inside of his or her mother. Talk about attachment with an umbilical cord. And then coming out, and then, your first source of sustenance is often breastfeeding. And another attachment. And then continually over the rest of a child's life, other manifestations of what it means to be attached. One lady, New Hoper, who's out east right now but saw me blogging on this, talked about another way that eye contact helps physiologically build into our attachment with kids. She wrote, "You may have observed mothers and fathers," this is Diana Wamstaker writing, "you may have observed mothers and fathers gazing into their baby's eyes. What's actually happening is that when a parent, particularly the mother, gazes into their new baby's eyes, a whole lot of hormones are being released in the mother's brain, and the brain actually rewires itself to form a deep connection that comes into sync with the child. The caregiver can then intuitively respond appropriately, which means consistently with warm effect to the child's needs. The child's brain is also wiring itself to respond in tune with that warm and loving gaze." God is into attachment. God is materially into attachment, so much so that He built all of the aforementioned attachments into the system. God is also psychologically and spiritually into the idea of attachment. He is for attachment. In order to help you know what it means to attach as a parent, He puts you in a relationship where you, like a child, are attached to Him, knowing that attachment will so feed these attachments. To be a human being is to be attached intimately to God. And you got to think, if that's true, then that most primal and first and foremost attachment in your life would have huge implications in terms of how you then attach to the people you're attaching to, your kids. There is no stronger emotional bond, no stronger spiritual, psychological, physical bond than the bond I have with God. Maybe not physical so much yet, but sort of now, because he did come with a body as a baby so we could touch him and hold him